Hello everyone, I'm Mihoko. It's time for you to learn about Japanese culture in a fun and easy to understand way. There are 3 Japanese classics that are considered great essays in order of age: 枕草子、北条記 and つれづれ草。枕草子 literally means a pillow book. It was written about 1,000 years ago by Sei Shonagon, who served the Empress Sadako at the Imperial Court. Sadako was the Empress of Emperor Ichijo, who would later have another Empress. This was the first case of one emperor with 2 empresses at the same time. One of the ladies who served the other empress was Murasaki Shikibu, who wrote The Tale of Genji, one of the world's most famous full-length novels. Sei Shonagon and Murasaki Shikibu, the 2 great female authors, were active during the heyday of the aristocratic period. The Pillow Book is a collection of essays consisting of about 300 chapters. The contents are divided into the 3 main sections. 1. Diary-like chapters on her court life. 2. Chapters listing matters related to a particular topic. 3. Essay-like chapters expressing her ideas and impressions. This time, you can learn about the historical background of the Pillow Book through the author's life at court. I hope you'll enjoy it.
The capital of Japan is now Tokyo, but Kyoto was the capital for about 1,000 years since the end of the 8th century. The capital of Kyoto was built in a grid pattern following the Chinese capital of that time. The first 400 years, aristocrats had power with the emperor at the top. Initially, Japan was strongly influenced by Chinese culture, but gradually developed its own unique culture. This was greatly due to the abolition of Japanese envoys to China and the fact that Japan was an island nation surrounded by the sea. Early the 10th century, the first imperial anthology of poetry, the Kokinshu, was compiled. Shortly before 1000 AD, Sei Shonagon worked as a court lady. At that time, Japanese waka poetry was an essential part of aristocratic education. On the other hand, Chinese poetry was a male-dominated art form, and most women could neither write nor read Chinese poetry. Even if they knew, they would normally keep it a secret to avoid attracting attention. Sei Shonagon had a knowledge of Chinese poetry because his father was a low-ranking official, but an excellent scholar and poet. Her great-grandfather was also a great poet. Her first marriage was at the age of 16, and they had a boy. They later divorced. She began a new life as a lady-in-waiting, serving Empress Sadako, the Empress of Emperor Ichijo. Sei Shonagon was 28 years old and Sadako was 17. When Sadako died just 7 years later, Sei Shonagon's court work came to an end. Those days, it was common for aristocrats to have a number of mistresses in addition to their official wives. They could improve their own status by connecting with influential people in political circles. Women with good family backgrounds were especially desirable as formal wives. This also applied to emperors. In particular, the emperor was expected to have a son who would be his successor. Emperor Ichijo loved Sadako very much and didn't want to have a mistress. No powerful aristocrat could send his own daughter as a mistress to the emperor of the court. This was mainly due to the fact that Sadako's father was the most powerful man in politics. The emperor was 3 years younger than Sadako. Sadako was beautiful, intelligent, bright, and knew Chinese poetry. When Sei Shonagon began to serve Sadako, Sadako was shining with happiness. There was a cultural salon where the empress and her attendants gathered. Sadako's mother had once been a high-ranking court lady and knew the charm of the salon. She raised Sadako to be an intelligent and sociable woman who could successfully manage the cultural salon. She also taught Sadako Chinese literature. Sadako's father, Fujiwara no Michitaka, held the greatest power in court politics. He had gathered cultured women who could educate and advise his daughter. This made Sadako's salon all the more attractive. Finally, Sei Shonagon made her appearance. Born in a prestigious worker poem family, Sei Shonagon was welcomed into Sadako's salon with great expectations. However, having no experience in court service, Sei Shonagon was at first confused by the glamorous court life. She described her early days at court. When I first began serving Empress Sadako at the palace, I was so embarrassed that I almost cried. Every night when I was on duty, I would sit hidden behind a 3-foot screen near the Empress. The Empress would take out pictures and other items and speak kindly to me. I couldn't put out my hand to take it and didn't know what to do. The position of the light was so low that my ugly hair was more visible than in daylight, which was embarrassing. It was so cold that the fingertips of the Empress, which were slightly visible through her sleeves, turned pale red. How beautiful! There is a person like this in the world. I was so impressed that I kept gazing at her fingers. Sei Shonagon also wrote about another incident. As we were talking, the Empress asked me, "Do you like me?" "How could I not like you?" I replied, and then someone in the distance sneezed loudly. Sneezing the sign of something bad. "Oh no, you lied to me." "That's enough." With that, the Empress went to a back room. Why should I lie? My love for the Empress is unparalleled, and I adore her with all my heart. Who could have done such a terrible thing? Sneezing is disgusting, so even if you want to sneeze, you have to stop, especially in such an important place. Sei Shonagon was a newcomer and didn't know how to deal with the situation. Without saying anything, she stayed the night and returned to her room. Those days, the attendants lived in the same building as their female master. Their working hours were not fixed, and they sometimes worked at night or even all night if the Empress requested it. As the days passed, Sei Shonagon came to realize that Sadako was a wonderful woman who had the kindness to care for each of her attendants and the leadership ability to bring out the best in each of them. For Sei Shonagon, Empress Sadako was like a star to admire, and even when Sadako subsequently fell on hard times, her feelings for the Empress never changed. For Sadako too, Sei Shonagon soon became her most trusted attendant. Sei Shonagon writes about one of her very happy moments. When I arrive, my colleagues are sitting in front of the Empress with no space between them. I sit around the pillar, a short distance away from the Empress. The Empress immediately notices me and says, "Come here." People quickly make way, and I'm able to serve right next to the Empress. This makes me very happy. About 1 year and a half after Sei Shonagon had entered court service, a great tragedy happened to the Empress. Her father, Michitaka, died of illness. Shortly before his death, he promoted Korejika, Sadako's elder brother, to a key political position, but he was only 22 years old. He was too young to be at the top and not popular enough. Emperor Ichijo learned Chinese literature from Korejika, and the two of them spent many happy years together in Sadako's salon. Emperor Ichijo wanted to place Korejika at the top for Sadako. However, Emperor Ichijo's mother strongly opposed the idea and insisted that her own younger brother, Michinaga, be placed as the head. Sadako's father, Michitaka, and Michinaga were siblings of Emperor Ichijo's mother. She had a better relationship with Michinaga than her elder brother, Michitaka. The emperor had no choice but to obey his mother. From there, the power struggle between Korejika and Michinaga began. The following year, however, Korejika and his younger brother committed a reckless incident. Michinaga took advantage of this and drove them both far away from the capital. This stabilized Michinaga's position at the top of the government. Michinaga didn't support Sadako at all and treated her coldly. In the midst of this confusion, Sadako impulsively cut her own hair. Cutting the hair, even if it was short, was like becoming a nun. It meant leaving her husband. The nobles thought that a nun could not remain empress. Soon after, her mother died of mental pain. Sadako, who had no reliable relatives, was already pregnant with the emperor's first child. Sadako could have ended her life quietly as a nun who left the court after losing her position as a prosperous empress, but this did not happen because Emperor Ichijo loved Sadako deeply and did not want to let her go. She eventually gave birth to a princess. Sei Shonagon's circumstances also became more difficult. In the past, young aristocrats visited Sadako's salon and enjoyed chatting with the ladies. Sei Shonagon was particularly popular among them, and she developed friendships with the upper-class nobles. However, when Michinaga assumed the highest political position, many talented young court nobles came to work for him. As a result, Sei Shonagon's colleagues became suspicious. They began to suspect that Sei Shonagon must be a spy for Michinaga and started to exclude her from the group. Although Sei Shonagon believed that the empress trusted her, she could not stand the cold treatment she had received from her colleagues. Sei Shonagon went back home with a bound, blank piece of paper that the empress had given her earlier. She describes a conversation she had with the empress when she had received the paper. One day, Sadako's elder brother, Korejika, presented a blank book bound with many sheets of paper to the empress as well as the emperor. The emperor said to me, "The emperor is copying the Chinese history books on this. What should I write?" I replied immediately, "A pillow would be good to start." Hearing this, the empress gave it to me, saying, "In that case, use it." As to what this pillow means, there is still no established theory. One theory is that this was a well-witted response based on a line from a famous Chinese poet's poem. "I've been in the office all day and have no work to do, so I'm taking a nap with a book as my pillow." Those days, paper was handmade and extremely expensive. When Sei Shonagon received a large amount of paper from the empress, the happiness of Sadako's family reached its peak. While at home, Sei Shonagon began to write in a book Whatever came to her mind, she was always concerned about how Sadako was spending her time. She received many letters from Sadako asking her to come back as soon as possible. One time, 20 sheets of high-quality paper were delivered. Sei Shonagon was deeply moved that the Empress remembered what she had forgotten. It was a conversation she had with the Empress and her colleagues in the salon. I said, even when I'm so depressed that I think I can no longer live, if I have white paper, fine paper, and a good brush, I think I can still live and my mood becomes brighter. The Empress and my colleagues laughed and said, "What a simple way for you to get rid of worries." Returning home, Sei Shonagon told only a limited number of people where she was. Among them was a court nobleman who served Michinaga and had Michinaga's common law wife as his elder sister. However, he was close not only to Sei Shonagon but also to Sadako and her attendants. One day, after visiting Sadako, he visited Sei Shonagon. He told her that the Empress and her attendants were living gracefully in their seasonal clothes despite the difficult circumstances and encouraged Sei Shonagon to go back. However, Sei Shonagon remembered the cold treatment from her colleagues and could not accept it. The postscript to the pillow book describes a later visit by the same man. When he came, Sei Shonagon placed a straw mat cushion on the edge of the veranda for him. At that moment, she noticed a book she had written on the cushion. She tried to get it back, but the man quickly took it off with him. The book was not returned until much later. She supposed it was from this time that her book began to be passed about at the court. 6 months later, letters from the Empress became rare and Sei Shonagon was discouraged. At that time, a letter arrived. It contained a single Yamabuki blossom, and on the petals were written a short message. "I think of you without words." Sei Shonagon immediately understood that the Empress had taken this approach based on famous waka poems. Impressed by Sadako's sentiments, Sei Shonagon quickly wrote back and finally returned to her work at court. When visiting Sadako's salon for the first time in 6 months, Sei Shonagon sat half hidden behind a screen. The Empress noticed her and laughed, saying, "Is she a newcomer?" Sadako said to Sei Shonagon, "I always miss you very much." Her attitude towards Sei Shonagon had not changed at all. From then on, Sei Shonagon never left Sadako's side until the very end. The Empress then gave birth to a prince. Just before the birth of the prince, her uncle Michinaga sent his own daughter, 12-year-old Akiko, to the court as Empress to Emperor Ichijo. It was unusual for one emperor to have 2 empresses at the same time. The following year, the day after the birth of the second princess, Sadako passed away at the age of 24. When Sadako died, Sei Shonagon left the court and continued writing for the next 9 years. At court, Michinaga gathered a group of educated women in Akiko's salon in an attempt to attract the emperor's attention to his daughter. One of them was Murasaki Shikibu. She had already begun writing The Tale of Genji and was well known for it. Later, Akiko gave birth to 2 princes who would become emperors, and Michinaga's golden age as a politician continued. It is not clear how Sei Shonagon spent her later years, but it is said that she lived quietly near Sadako's grave. The Pillow book focuses only on the first year and a half of Sadako's life, during which Sei Shonagon served and flourished. She writes little about the humiliating and sad events after Sadako began to decline. In a sense, the Pillow book was an elegy dedicated by Sei Shonagon to Empress Sadako. This is the end of the video. Thank you for watching.